Imagine being 15 and forced to work in a brothel from 2 p.m. to 2 a.m. Then I'll take you to another one until 5 in the morning every single day, and you're a 15-year-old girl. Imagine that if you can.
Human trafficking, when it really comes down to it, is simply the holding of another person in a condition of compelled service. In other words, it's modern-day slavery.
I grew up in Cameroon. I was 14 years old when I came to the state. I was told that I was going to go to school when I came here, but unfortunately when I get here, it didn't happen the way. I was taking care of kids, cooking, doing laundry. I have to make sure that I'm doing something so I won't get yelled or hit.
We see it all across the country. People are promised better lives. They're told that they'll come here to the land of opportunity. You can make your money, you can feed your family. And when they get here, they're placed into a role that they can't get out of.
First thing, he raped me. And that's when he told me that he had bought me for $200, that I was his slave, and I was not going nowhere.
They don't know where they are, and they have no clue as to how to communicate or how to move forward, or if they were to escape, where to go.
The overwhelming image you get is of just being worked to the bone. Once the trafficker has this victim dominated, they exploit and exploit and exploit the victims.
It could be beatings, it could be psychological manipulation, it could be taking their documents. Force, fraud, and coercion are really, it's a psychological web that the trafficker kind of weaves around their victims to overbear their will, to make them think that they have no reasonable alternative but to continue in service.
A lot of people probably wonder, why don't you escape? Why don't you this? Why don't you run?
That would be like taking you or me and putting us over in Moscow, and we don't speak the language, we don't know the geography, and then somebody says, oh, no, this is what you're going to be doing instead of what you thought you were going to be doing. And I know where your family is, and they'll beat you, rape you, and what choice do you feel you have? How are you going to escape? Do you know how to contact the police over there?
My trafficker said, if you go to the police, no one can believe you. First, you have no documents. Second, you don't speak English and you don't have money. And I'm sorry to say, in my country, only people who have money have justice.
In many different countries, law enforcement and governments are corrupt. And the people from those countries don't expect anything better over here.
She was telling me that if the police catch you on the road, they're going to lock you up and then have you sent back home. I can't do anything because I don't have nobody here. I'm here alone.
She said, in this country, dogs have more rights than you have. And I believe everything she said.
Traffickers are starting to use means that are much more violent. The threats are greater. Their use of weapons has increased.
The coercion they use. I will kill your family. I will kill your children, your mother. Who cannot be afraid?
In that case, you don't even need an actual weapon. You've got this weapon of fear over people that can be just as or more effective.
The data on human trafficking is extremely high. Hundreds of thousands of people being trafficked internationally every year, tens of thousands within the United States of America. I'm positive that that number will continue to increase because we have just begun to evaluate the severity of this problem.
It's happening in the big cities, it's happening in medium-sized towns, and it actually, based on my experience, is happening in rural America.
The traffickers are very manipulative. They'll lie to them, promise them good jobs, but once they get over here, they find themselves being forced into a prostitution. It's modern-day slavery, what's going on.
Transporting or any kind of transportation does not have to be involved. So a person can be trafficked and still not be moved anywhere.
You see a lot of cases with women in prostitution, with migrant workers.
restaurants, construction, labor situations, maids, nannies, companions. It can be in the bars, massage parlors.
It's in the coffee you drink, it's in the clothes that you wear, it's in the tomatoes on your hamburgers.
Human traffickers are making millions upon millions upon millions of dollars every single year. And it's occurring right under our noses. We just don't know what to look for.
Trafficking and smuggling are often confused or used interchangeably, when in fact they're very different.
Smuggling tends to be a little bit more humane. It's that agreed upon price, getting them from point A to point B, having the payment made, and then releasing them safely to a family member or a respondent. That is smuggling. That happens every day.
If you've got long-term payment of a debt and the person isn't allowed to leave, even though that might have been a smuggling situation, it could have turned into a trafficking situation.
They're told, well, you keep working, you'll be able to pay off your debt. Unfortunately, their debt keeps continuing. It's a never-ending cycle for them.
The issue of choice is critical here. Can you make a choice to be a slave? You cannot make a choice to be a slave.
Go in there with no preconceived ideas on how this population should be.
Not all victims are undocumented. Not all victims are immigrants.
We've got a lot of U.S. citizens who are vulnerable.
My primary experience is based on a case that involved several individuals who were mentally ill in a group home in rural Kansas. They ranged in age from approximately 30 to about 80 years old. They were all Caucasian. They had to give their clothing to their trafficker and perform labor such as tearing down an old barn or repairing barbed wire fences. And so you can't look at a certain profile. Unfortunately, they can be anyone who has a particular vulnerability that can be exploited by the trafficker.
It's looking at that individual person. What situation are they in? Are they being forced to do something that against their will through fraud, force, or coercion?
He had threatened me that if I tell anyone what's going on, that he will kill my family. My family is very important. That's all what I have, my family.
This isn't a crime that involves breaking the sovereignty of the United States by bringing an illegal alien across the border. We have other laws for that. This crime is about the constitutional right to freedom. It's a human rights issue. The following are key points from this segment. The modern definition of human trafficking is the use of force, fraud, or coercion to obtain or maintain someone in service, whether for labor or commercial sexual activity, or the use of a minor for commercial sexual activity, regardless of whether there's any overt coercion. There are significant differences between the crimes of human trafficking and smuggling. Trafficking is not voluntary. It entails the exploitation of a person for labor or services and does not necessarily involve movement of a person. It can occur with U.S. citizens, domestically or abroad. Smuggling, however, is voluntary and ends after the border crossing. Fees are usually paid in advance or upon arrival, and it is always international in nature. Anyone can be a victim of trafficking, including U.S. citizens as well as documented or undocumented immigrants. Victims can be women, children, or men. For more information, please refer to IACP's guidebook, The Crime of Human Trafficking, a law enforcement guide to identification and investigation. Or contact the IACP at 1-800-THE-IACP or on the web at www.theiacp.org.